Well, we're back together again. It's Rob Licuria and Chris Beachum. Rob's a senior editor here at Gold Derby. I'm managing editor. We've been doing these talks and interviews for 8 years. Long time, but both of our jobs have gotten in the way of doing these very often. So we thought we would do individual slugfests for the different Emmy races this year. So Rob, let's tackle comedy actor first. Good to see you again.
Yeah, you too. It's always a pleasure to get together with you, Chris.
Well, let's go through the nominees. We've got Donald Glover, Atlanta, Bill Hader, Barry, Ted Danson, The Good Place, William H. Macy for Shameless, Anthony Anderson for Blackish, and Larry David for Curb Your Enthusiasm. So who right now would you say is in your number one slot?
Well, what I like to do for every category, as you probably know, is I think that there's an argument for almost everyone, generally speaking. But let's just, if we start off with who we think is a safe bet at this stage, I would say that's Donald Glover. He has 4 nominations this year. And I just think that Atlanta has done so well compared to last season that he's probably out in front. What do you think?
Well, actually, he has 5 because he has the SNL guest hosting as well, 4 for Atlanta. But Bill Hader's in the exact same 5 categories. They're both up for producing, directing, writing, acting, and then guest hosting SNL, of all things. So I think it's a tight race between the two. I'll probably keep Donald Glover all the way to the end. He seems to be having more of a moment. Because he's also, been at the Grammys this year and just seems to be the it guy. And on top of all of those reasons, if you're just not sure on a category at the Emmys and there's a returning person, the returning winner in that category, just go with the returning winner. I mean, they love repeats.
They really do. And look, I think that back in the day, you'd get a lot of repeat winners. So we know that, right? So it's possible that he could just pull it out again. But, the voting has changed now, and it seems to be more of a popularity contest, which is why you're right. It's really between Hader and Glover, and they've both had very, very successful seasons. And I just think that I am veering towards Glover because he really has had his moment in the spotlight this particular year, especially as Childish Gambino, as you say, at the Grammys. He had a really, really popular guest stint on Saturday Night Live for which he was nominated. And this particular season of Atlanta, Robin season, the second season, has been really well received, which is why it's almost pretty much doubled its nomination total from the first season. So I think of the heats with Atlanta. And as you say, there's a lot of categories where Hader and Glover are going kind of head to head, and also where their shows are going head to head. And I think it's going to be very interesting to watch as Emmy night progresses, how Barry's going and how Atlanta's going. At this point, I think Atlanta has the edge though. But again, I could make arguments for all of them. Should we do that? Should we start looking at the others to see whether they might have a chance to maybe break through these two guys in front?
Yeah, and let me just say, episodes don't matter nearly as much, which just saddens us so much, because that used to be one of our favorite parts of the Emmys, and you get surprise winners mainly because the voters had to watch the episodes. It was smaller groups of voters. Donald Glover could win just on episode alone for those that do watch, because he does play his regular character for just a moment, but he plays this creepy character that they don't really even acknowledge as Donald Glover in the credits. For the majority of his episodes. So he would, they love transformative performances. He could win on that alone, forgetting everything else we said.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's so transformative. I mean, God, I really wish episodes were as important as they used to be. I mean, back in the day, you know more than anyone else, we would watch all the episodes and we would literally be able to say with a lot of confidence, if there was one particular episode that stood out, that person was going to win against all the odds, against what all the other people in the media were saying. And on many occasions we were right, because the episode really mattered. These days, it's really a popularity contest. Episode, of course, is something that we need to take into account. And Teddy Perkins is absolutely an episode where, I mean, you don't even know it's him. at the beginning, and it's really so different to what he's normally what normally used to seeing him do. So yeah, it's a very exciting category. I still think he's in front, but I think the other guys all have arguments for them. I really do.
Well, Macy, William H. Macy in particular, to me, has proven, a lot of the same voters are in SAG. Well, all of the Emmy voters would be in SAG. Not all the SAG voters are Emmy voters, but he's won 3 times for Shameless at the SAG Awards. So that's got my attention a little bit.
Yeah, it's inexplicable how he has won so many times amongst his peers at the SAG Awards, and yet he hasn't been able to win at the Emmys. This is his 5th consecutive nomination for Shameless. That's extremely impressive. Does he maybe slightly have an overdue factor there?
Well, he does have 2 Emmys, so that doesn't help him in the context of what we're talking about. But he's also the big. Sometimes they'll go with the biggest film star, especially on the movie and limited series side. He's really the only film star out of these 6. And Joan Cusack has proven for Shameless that they'll go for a Shameless actor. So it's possible. Another one that's got my attention is somebody legendary, really the most legendary from the television side. Ted Danson is finally here on one of my favorite shows of all, The Good Place. And it's been a long, long time, over 20, well, let's see, 25 years exactly since he won for Cheers, the last season of Cheers.
That's right. I mean, obviously, he is so well renowned for being a comedy actor on television, although he was nominated a few times for Damages. I think the last one was in 2010. So it still has been quite a long spell since he's been at the Emmys as a nominee. It was so exciting to see him finally make the cut here in this category, especially for The Good Place, which is such a critically acclaimed series on NBC. There's a possibility that if we've got 2 frontrunners who are really neck and neck in the voting, that because there's no overwhelming favorite here, that someone from behind could easily take enough votes to win this category, and someone like Ted Danson could absolutely do that, given who he is and given the critically acclaimed performance he gives on The Good Place.
Anthony Anderson's been here. I think this is his 4th in a row. I just don't see it. Not this year. The show just not picking up much in terms of nominations. And Curb underperformed overall on nominations. We've never really seen a person playing themselves win at the Emmys. And we've seen a lot of, and I'm not talking about like a Ray Romano. At least he was technically playing another character, even though it was very similar to Ray Romano. People like Jerry Seinfeld and Larry David, Aziz Ansari, Louis C.K. They don't seem to give them enough credit if they're playing themselves.
Yeah, it's really hard for someone playing themselves in this particular category, especially to win. I mean, Larry David has been nominated 26 times over the years for various things that he has done as a writer, as a performer, as a producer. That's extremely impressive. It's great that he's here, but I think he and Anthony Anderson, although you could probably try to squeeze out an argument for both of them, are probably in the back of this particular pack. So it looks like then that we would probably have William H. Macy's a favorite with the actors. He's a possibility. Ted Danson, he is a legend. So he's a possibility. Donald Glover and Bill Hader are out front. And really, you could toss a coin between the 2 of them, but I think probably Donald Glover is the hottest right now, and therefore he's probably got his nose out front. So I think you agree with that this category looks like it's pretty settled.
I think so. And we've got our picks in the Prediction Center. You can go in and make your predictions right away, and you can keep changing them all the way up until Emmy weekend. And watch our other videos. We're talking about all of the lead categories this week.